coming on. This is your host, Gulmakai Saleh, the founder and creative director of the Golden Tree of Goodness. You are watching Listen to Understand with Gulmakai. Through this webcast, we want to promote goodness through understanding. We want to empower our audience to break the cycle of conflicts by creating an environment where there is understanding amongst all people through the universal message of the Golden Rule, which is to treat others as one would treat oneself. Today, our special guest, Skye Paine, who will speak about the STAR experience. It's a 4-step experience for building a foundation for abundant happiness.
Well, it's a pleasure to be here, and I'm really happy to be here. And I didn't know what you wanted to start. You had some questions before I get started talking about this.
Yeah. So let me speak more about who she really is and what great work she's been doing. Skywalker Paine has a bachelor in storytelling and communication. She's an author, oral storyteller, voiceover artist. She's also an entrepreneur who helps people with their message and voice. Her 2 books, if I didn't mention she is an author, her 2 books are All That Is, Dance of Mindfulness and Gratitude, and Breathing Through the Eye of a Needle, Stories of Living in the Moment from Birth to Death. Recently, she has launched a project called Companions. Compassion Games is another organization. I look at their website and stuff, so the names just like clicked. A fun fact about Skywalker is she loves spiritual practice, playing the wooden flute, and sewing. She'll tell us more about her books. I'm kind of interested in those books, but first we're going to start off with questions. So please tell us other things about yourself, your hobbies and other things that you like to do.
Well, I'm not much one for hobbies, except I do like to sew when I have time. I've made hats, I've made clothes, and I like to read. I'm always reading in between everything else. And I used to like to ride bicycles until I moved west, and haven't been able to ride a bike in years since I was a nurse. And I like to go for walks. And my husband and I like to watch movies, primarily on TV.
Everyone has their hobbies.
But I don't, so that's what we do for relaxation. And I love playing my flute. That's what I would call my biggest hobby, and the thing I'm doing mostly when I have free time and when I want to just relax. I'll play a little bit on my flute.
Great things you're doing. So as we were speaking earlier, Skywalker, she's going to speak to us about the STAR experience, which she's going to now tell us, give us a brief explanation into what that topic is really about.
Yes, the STAR experience is something totally new. And actually, when I first wrote you, or the information I gave you about what I do as an entrepreneur was evolving because of my voiceover work. I had been encouraged to teach people about voice and work on message. And I was taking a course on how to create a course, because I've been trying to do an online course for several years without success. And in the process of doing that, and I started off working on a voice course or a message course, and it didn't feel right. And then one day I was just sitting thinking that I'm happy. I'm really a happy person. And as I reflected on it, I started realizing I know why I'm happy, how I've become happy. And I think it's important for everyone to be happy, especially women. And that's how the STAR experience evolved, because I was thinking of how can I help women realize happiness, but not just being happy, not a regular type of a course, because you can't really teach someone to be happy. You can share components that help you to stay happy, and you can create a community. And that's really what the STAR experience is going to be about, is creating a shared community of experience and understanding among participants, in which we're not only working to be happy for ourselves, but to be happy so that we have that as a ground to create harmony among our communities and our families and in the world. And then when we're happy and harmonious, we can practice compassion. Because compassion was and is to me, the ultimate goal for creating a world of peace and harmony. But you can't do that unless you're happy with yourself. That's the first step, is to be happy with yourself. And and it took me a while to, in fact, a long time to get to that point. I've gone through my stages of being unhappy and confused and lost and angry, but through a lot of different elements, from my spiritual practice to women I've met, even to being an entrepreneur, I've found elements of happiness. And so STAR experience is ideally and ultimately will evolve my goal into a community. But I'm going to start with a 4-week introduction of the STAR experience. And it'll be oriented particularly for people and for women specifically who might be alone during this holiday season. For women who are either divorced or single, or for whatever reason don't have someone to celebrate with, or maybe they don't celebrate the holiday season. And for women who feel like they've gotten off the path of happiness, who know or have experienced, or who just want to get that happiness. And so the STAR experience will be a 4-week experience that'll start on November 20th. And STAR stands for self-awareness, tenacity, abundant attitude, and radiance. So that's what STAR stands for. And each week we'll be working on one of those legs of the STAR. And when you're working on like self-awareness, we'll be looking at mental perceptions and emotional perceptions. So each one has the goal actually of the week is to develop self-awareness. For tenacity is to understand what tenacity means. And part of tenacity is being resilient and patient. And then abundant attitude will have to deal primarily with, first, most of us have more abundance than we realize. We might not have a lot of money in the bank. We might even be in debt. But we have talents, we have work we can do, we have things we own, and we have things to be grateful for. And when you understand and practice gratitude, then you start understanding how abundant you are. And when you can start to change that mindset from, oh, I don't have anything, to, oh, I have everything, your whole world and your whole life starts to change. And then radiance is where we end up shining our light. It's when people will get to experience feeling the total light that they can have and that they offer to the world. And it's an introduction, because what we'll be doing by spring is offering the STAR experience as a whole year-long experience with 3 months devoted to each part of the experience. And ultimately, my goal is that people who take part in the experience will have a membership, and part of the membership will be to create a fund so that we can have funds to do compassionate activities, like donate to people like you, to nonprofits like your organization, or help people overseas. So that's my long range plan for the STAR experience.
Wow. That's a great project you have going on. And I know all the people who are watching will want some tips on how to be abundantly happy. And of course, she's going to share some tips. And of course, there's always the option, once she has everything settled and ready to go, you could be part of her group and take benefits from that and share with others. So can you also share with us a story about how you have helped yourself or others who did not have happiness?
Well, that's interesting. I think when I was a nurse, in fact, there's a specific person I can talk about. One of the patients, in fact, it was odd. When I was a nurse, I ended up developing several friendships of people who were patients and were still friends outside of the clinic I worked in. And one of the ladies who I helped is a storyteller, and she's a native Alaskan. And I met her. First, I became aware of her as a patient. I was a case manager at this clinic here in Homer. It's a community clinic, and it's a native Alaskan clinic. And so she came, and I was helping the doctor help her with her appointments, things like that. But the clinic also offered a free weekly program called Thriving Thursday. And so I did a 6-week storytelling program called The Healing Power of Story. And this patient, I don't want to share her name, but she came, and she is a phenomenal woman. She became a storyteller. She was chosen by her village and her elders when she was just a young girl, 3 or 4 years old, to be a storyteller. So she learned to tell in the traditional way of telling, and which is different from how I had learned storytelling as a performance artist. And the program was built around a little program I had developed at a time called Change Your Story, Change Your Life. And it was kind of a precursor to what I'm doing with the STAR experience. And so some of the things she liked, some of the things she didn't like. And so we went through a long period of time in developing our friendship. And what was interesting is, and she had a lot of problems, physical problems and emotional problems because of things that had happened in her life. And one time she sent me an email that was just so terrible to me. It was like I had done all these terrible things to her, and it was it hurt me, but I just took a deep breath and waited, and I didn't respond angrily to her. So long story short is she came back to me, she apologized, and she went through different changes. And so I would just talk to her and listen to her. And then one time, she actually even tried to commit suicide. And after that, I talked to her. And I would call her and just talk to her and give her support and try and reinforce what she knew was positive. And after a while, she started telling me that I had helped her. She would tell me that just my listening to her, just calling her, helped her in ways that not the doctors or the psychologists or anyone else helped her. And that was a whole learning process for me, because there is a time when I had gotten that first email where I would never have responded to her years and years ago. But because of the good times we had had, and because she was a storyteller, because I knew she had a lot of wisdom and good things in her life, I just hung in with her. And she's gotten much better and happier since the suicide attempt. And I mean, she's an elderly woman. She's over 70, and she's had terminal cancer. So she's had a lot of challenges in her life. But it made me feel good when she started to accept that I really cared about her and that I really wanted her to be happy. So it was a matter of just listening and being supportive and putting my feelings aside to be able to help her find a safer and happier place in her life.
Wow, that's a beautiful story. You know, a lot of people, they'll take the other route and they'll say, who is that person talking to me in that tone or in that manner? But you decide that, you know, this person is in pain. I know she won't, she doesn't really mean it deep down inside. She's a good person. And you brought that goodness out of her, right? You showed her happiness, even though she was going through so much pain and hardship. You showed her how you could be still content and be happy and live a full life of happiness, regardless of what issue and pains you're going through in life. So, you know, thank you. I want to say thank you for acting in such a kind and generous way with her and sharing the story with us. It's a beautiful story. So those who are tuning in, we have Skywalker Paine, who's talking about the star experience to us. So we can also learn from her how to be happy and share with others who need that happiness. So as I'm going down the list of questions, can you tell me, is it always important to be happy? Do we always have to be happy? Is that part of reality to be happy all the time?
The happiness that I'm talking about is not the materially based happiness. I'm talking about the happiness that we learn about in whatever spiritual tradition we are in, that despite whatever might happen to us or what struggles we may have, there's this part of us inside that is happy, that knows gratitude, that knows everything serves a purpose, even sometimes the bad times and the times, and I'm not saying you don't get sad when you're happy. You can be happy, but you can have that inner strength of happiness. But if you lose someone you love, or if you lose a friend, or if something happens to you, yes, we're still going to have our feelings. We're still going to have emotions, but we're not going to sink into total despair. We're able to say, this is something I feel right now. It's a valid feeling, but I'll get through it because I have so much other to be grateful for. I have the fact that I'm still alive, that I can think, that I can be of service. If I have a family, I have a friends. Whatever happens, a happy person is able to deal with the challenges instead of just falling to pieces. You know, it's like, well, like my sister, she lives in, she's from Panama City, Florida, which she was smart enough, she and her husband left before the hurricane hit. And they were even more fortunate that they had a forest in their backyard to protect their house. But when I talked to her, she was concerned, but she still was happy that they were smart enough to leave because of the conditions that people are suffering. And she said, we'll get through this. We'll just deal with it. You know, some other people could just be so totally distraught and not be able to handle. That's what the difference between somebody who's ending up having to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars sitting at a psychologist instead of being able to look into themselves and say, what is it that's good inside of me? What blessings have I received? What gifts do I have? Who loves me? And do I love myself? And that's the primary thing, one of the most essential elements of being able to be happy. And that's why I start off with self-awareness, is you have to be able to be aware of all the blessings and worth and value you have as a human being to be able to begin to be happy. And a lot of people don't have that because they've been not given that opportunity. Either they've not been taught it because they haven't had a spiritual path or spiritual mentors, or how they've been raised, or they've been in abusive situations as children, and people lose it. So it's really important for people to gain self-awareness, gain self-love, gain self-compassion, and then they have happiness that doesn't go away because of circumstances, situations, or people.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's very true. According to my own faith, our beloved Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, has said, when you're ever depressed or sad, always look below you. If you don't have food for the night, look at the other people who haven't eaten for 2, 3 nights, for example. If you have a light jacket, look at the person who have to sleep out in the snow. So always look below you, and you'll find gratitude. When you have gratitude, appreciation, then that happiness will stay in your heart. The contentment, you're content in what you have, and you're happy. And it's a tranquility feeling that you have to, like you said, work on it. And my other speaker for Jana Khan, she spoke about emotional intelligence. So that I believe plays a great deal with your topic. Is a connection between that talk and this talk on how to bring that happiness into your life.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much
so
taught in every tradition, that you need to, in fact, that's one of the things a lot of the Buddhist teachers say, if you're feeling bad or down, think about someone else who's suffering. And you can think about how you could either want to relieve their suffering or recognize, just like you said, that you have a lot to be grateful for.
Yeah. Continuing on with our questions, how critical do you believe it is to have this knowledge and applying it during our times?
To our which times? Excuse me?
During our times, how critical is it important to apply this knowledge, have this knowledge at the same time?
I think it is vital at these times. In fact, that's part of what motivated me, because I had been trying to find a way to do something that I felt would be effective with all the contention and disagreement and negativity that is being forced on the world today because of poor leadership around the world. And if people, and so many people aren't happy, they're not turning inside. Too many people are caught up in headlines and Twitter feeds and what someone else is thinking, instead of even thinking for themselves, let alone feeling for themselves. And the happiness is not, like I said, is tied to creating harmony, which means understanding other people and being patient with other people and trying to create community, and then compassion. And compassion is so needed, because people are in their little same groups that think like them, and then they hate this group because of the way they look or because of where they come from. And it's creating all this turmoil in the world. And so this is what's really important, because I really believe, and we know, and science has shown us, that we're all energy. Our thoughts and our words and even our body, we're all connected. And if we don't practice caring for each other, if we don't try to create harmony, if we don't try to be compassionate, things only get worse. And and the sad thing is, I haven't heard any leaders talking about compassion or creating harmony. And that's what's needed to be done. And that's what we need to do. Because if we, as individuals, and particularly women, work on being happy for ourselves and creating harmony in our community and being compassionate with ourselves, our family, and other people, we create an energy that will spread throughout the planet and will help to make change, because the change will be inevitable.
Beautiful. Today we have Skywalker Paine. She's talking about the star experience, where we have abundant happiness, and she gave us great examples, and she also shared a beautiful story with us. And of course, how can you give us some tips, maybe a few tips before we go into the next questions? How can we have that? What are a few things we could do?
Well, what I've been talking about this week in my group is self-care. Self-care is tied to self-awareness. And the first step is, like I said, you have to be aware of yourself. And if you're not taking care of yourself, which means taking time for yourself, whether you're a mother, a student, a wife, a working woman, an entrepreneur, whatever you're doing, you have to have time for yourself. And that's usually some kind of quiet time, whether you get up early in the morning before everyone else in the family, whether you stay up late, whether you go on a walk at lunch. Time for you to be in touch with yourself, to get to know who you are. And then self-care also includes doing things for yourself that you like to do, whether it's having some dark chocolate, you know, some people like to buy clothes, whatever it is, but things that make you feel good as a human being. Because it's this sacrificial position that too many women have taken, where they don't take care of themselves and they're trying to do everything for everyone else. But underneath, there's dissatisfaction. It can lead to being physically ill, heart attacks. It can lead to addictions, where women will be just drinking or eating because they're not doing what they want to do for themselves. So the first step in being happy is to know who you are, to take care of yourself, to love yourself, have compassion for yourself, recognize you're not perfect. You're not going to be able to be everything for everyone, but you have to be what you want to be for yourself.
True. Yeah, that's so right. Studying women in the individualistic societies and in the collective society, the stress here is more living in an individualistic society. Women, they don't have that support that comes from the village, right? You heard the saying, it takes a village to raise a child. So we don't have that support here to help us with our children. Like, I've been to countries overseas and I see the children, the mother's not responsible taking them to the school or to the doctor or getting the grocery stores. That's other people's responsibilities. She just, like, wash the clothes, cook the food, clean up the house, and she's free the whole day. She doesn't have all that stress on her. So now if you compare the woman that lives in a collective society, individual society, you see the stress load on the woman. Here, they go to school, they have to work, they have to bring money to the home. And they have to do so much on top of that, running your kids to after school programs, weekend, Sunday schools. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. It's mostly on the woman. Sometimes it's, the father's help out, or maybe a grandmother here and there, but mostly it's on the mother that she's so stressful. And what you say, taking care of yourself is important. It's very crucial for you to be happy as a female. So we have questions from the guest audience. The questions usually get answered at the end of the talk. Once I'm done with my questions, then we could have the questions from the audience. So, so now how do we teach children? We're raising our children. They're always bored. You hear that a lot. I'm bored. They have so much and they're still bored. So how do we teach children to build a foundation for abundant happiness?
Well, it's hard for me to believe that children are bored these days, because when I was a child, I didn't have videos or telephones or computers and all the things that kids have now, but I don't ever remember being bored. And that was because my mother provided us with just information and kind of a freedom to do what we wanted to do, but she encouraged us to be doing something. We would read books, my sisters would play with each other's, I would get my sisters and direct them into being plays from whatever I wanted to do. We were Little Women. Then when we got older, and we were the Bonanza family, even though we were girls. If this goes back to the beginning, if you're happy with yourself, it will go filter to the children. And my mother was happy with herself. My mother is where I learned self-care. because my mother cared for herself. She had 4 daughters and she raised us well. And she was married to the same man all her life. But my mother took care of herself. She got clothes she wanted. She went when she wanted to go out. She had friends. And so because she was happy, and she was always doing something. And even as she got older, she even did more things. But children pick up from their parents.
True.
So if you as a woman or as a mother is happy and like yourself, you'll find it'll just flow naturally. The children will start to pick up from what mama's doing or what daddy's doing. And there's so much. And then there's, doing things together as a family. If you're in a big city, there's museums, there's parks, going to the library, even watching TV is okay together. Sometimes. And it's really important for families to do things together, because and to not be sitting at the dinner table with everyone having their phone, or even worse, going to a restaurant. And I've seen people in restaurants here in Homer, which is a small town, sitting at the table and everybody has their phone and they're looking at the phone, and you're at a restaurant. You're supposed to be eating and talking to each other. So that's the most important thing, and the thing that I think is missing a lot in families these days. And in fact, I even saw briefly where some children in some state were protesting the amount of time their parents were on telephones. And these were little kids. I mean, and so there's some pretty smart little kids, because we need to interact with each other. We need to be present in the moment with the people we're with, and particularly with children. They need that. I mean, and particularly when they're from baby till 3 years old, but even pushing it on to 5 or 6, if the parents spend that time with their children as much as they can, they've got a good, strong foundation. Because once they start to get into school, all that peer influence starts to happen. But if they've gotten a good foundation at home of feeling loved, of being encouraged to do things for themselves, by themselves, that they like, then they'll be able to handle a little bit better the whole social thing in school. And being understanding, well, maybe everybody's not going to like me, but I can do some things that I like to do. And I know my parents love me. And those are the things that are important for children to know, that they're loved, that they can do things, that they don't need other people to be of value, because they are of value in themselves.
Beautiful. Yes. And I could say 100% what parents do reflects on the kids. It's like the saying that say the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I've seen it so much working with children for 14 years, working with parents and teachers. I see it so much that the children are a reflection of their parents. And I tell a lot of parents that, if emotion intelligence is important, if you lose it, if you go insane over a small issue, your child is looking at you and they're learning that. Unconsciously, they're learning your behavior. So we really have to be careful. And like you said, your mother showed you happiness by her actions, by the way she conducted herself. She didn't need to explain to you, well, this is what happiness is. You have to do this and think like this and this. She just, showed it through her character. Just like my mom, she showed me how to be giving. My father, who showed me how to be giving, just through their action. They didn't tell me to go ahead and do it or teach me, okay, you're going to take step 1, step 2, step 3. These are like some things that should come naturally to us. But the thing, yes, we have this distraction of the electronics in our life that really distract us from gaining that happiness and teaching it to our children. So just a few more questions before we go to the audience. The audience have a few questions, which is great. What final advice do you have for the audience? What other plans? Well, you did mention your plan. If you want to mention any other plans, I know you have your Holiday for Harmony show coming up you want to speak about, or your books. And also, tell us where we could reach you. You know, you can also put on the comment bar where anyone could reach you. Then after that, we'll just take the questions from the audience. So if the audience have any questions, you could type it up right now, and then I'll go through the comment bar and ask Skywalker to answer them.
Okay. Well, we're having the first week of November, November 5th to November 9th, Harmony for the Holidays, in which 11 women, including Gulmakai, share their advice and information and techniques for controlling stress during the winter holiday season. And it's a series of interviews. There are 11 women, and the interviews will be held throughout the week. And you can register for it. You can register for it by joining the group Loving a Life That Is Golden, or you can also register for it on Eventbrite. But I don't know, I'll have to, and you have that link. I sent that link to you.
Yeah, you could just post it on the comment bar below under this video.
Oh, okay, I'll do that.
And join your group. There's a Facebook group. What's the name again?
Loving a Life That Is Golden.
Okay, so that's her Facebook group. We'll put the link on the bottom, and you could just join her group. I did share it before the talk show. Right. I shared it with my. So hopefully.
And if people get in the group then and share their email list, email their register, because we're going to have, we will have an ebook, because a lot of the presenters are giving free offerings. And there's also going to be some prizes based on participation at the end of the event. So I'm looking for, it's the first time we've done it, but the women have wonderful information so that everyone can have a harmonious holiday and not get stressed out. You'll get a lot of self-care advice and how to handle family, how to handle gift giving, really good advice for the holidays. And my books are available on Amazon. I wrote these books a couple of years ago. I self-published them. All That Is, Dance of Mindfulness and Gratitude, is about mindfulness and gratitude. It's primarily, I took a online course on mindfulness because I did a workshop on it, and it documents that course. And I had also a booklet I wrote about gratitude, and I write about gratitude. And I also talk about the medical system and self-care and self-healing in that. And the other book, Breathing Through the Eye of a Needle, Stories of Living in the Moment from Birth to Death, is a collection of retold folk tales from around the world with a couple of original stories in there that deal with living in the moment from birth to death. And the book is divided into sections as if a storyteller was performing for an audience. So there's a section of stories for women, stories for families, stories for people who've been in the military. And they're available on Amazon.
Yeah, we'll share all the links. So now the question time. Nasir Popal asks, how do empathy deal with emotions of other? How does empathy deal with emotions of others? Do you understand the question?
Well, if you're empathetic, you're definitely dealing with, you are feeling someone's emotions, and you're feeling them in a sympathetic way. And you want to, and empathy is not so much.
He had restated his question.
Okay.
How do I deal with emotions of others, since so he's very emotional. So how does he deals with people who are also emotional? So how do I deal with emotions of others, since I'm also emotional?
Okay. Well, the first part would be learning to deal with your own emotions, because I can understand being emotional, but let's just say, so if someone's angry, and they're not necessarily angry with you, but they're just angry. If you as a person have not learned to, one, separate yourself from someone else's anger and say, oh, he's angry, but I'm not angry. So what can I do to help him not be angry? And sometimes that might be a difficult thing to do, but if a person's angry and they're just angry, but they're not, the person they're angry with or the situation they're angry with is not there, you might just say, well, do you want to talk about this? What made you angry? Or you could say, what can we do about the situation? So it's important when you're with someone who's having an emotion, and if you're not feeling that emotion, or if you're not the cause of the emotion or involved in it, you can feel for them. You might even get some of those feelings if you're a sensitive person, but you want to be able to support them calming down if they're angry, to give them comfort if they're sad. And sometimes it's just being there. Sometimes it's just not saying anything, which is sometimes hard to do, which I've learned, but sometimes that's all a person wants, is just you to be there and just listen. And sometimes even if somebody's angry, you just have to just listen to them and not take it that they're angry at you. Because sometimes when people get angry, they'll start cursing or saying they're angry and their voice is raised, but you know it's not you because you didn't cause it. And so it's a matter of, it's kind of practice, and it's kind of just being, again, spending time with yourself and knowing and recognizing your own feelings, and then knowing, depending on the situation and the relationship with the person who's having the emotions, how you want to deal with it. Sometimes you just might have to walk away. It just depends on the situation.
Yeah. If you know you're emotional unstable, it's better just to walk away until your emotions have calmed down. Then you can deal with the person who has emotions. So I hope Nasir, she has answered your question. We have another question from Jennifer. Let me go back to that question. Okay, she asked, any tips on people looking to discover their authentic self?
Again, pretty much this what I talked about before about self-awareness, self-care, spending time with yourself, spending time in solitude. Because when you're alone, you have to look inside. And you can journal. You can, if you don't like to write, you can talk into a mic. You can read about other women, but and I kind of understand what she's saying, because it took me a long time in terms of my work. I've spent this whole year trying to pursue something, and it was about voice and messaging, because the name of my business was Vibrant Velvet Voice, and because I was doing voiceover. But I knew in my heart I wanted to do something that had more meaning to me. But I knew I'm not a religious teacher, so I couldn't teach religion. I can't start a church. But it finally, when I realized, I said, oh, I can help women to be happy. So it's a matter of staying in touch with yourself and knowing and recognizing what's good about you, what you like about yourself. I mean, I've actually and a part of this process was taking courses and getting coaching with other women. And even though it was tied to business, it was about me getting to know myself and how I wanted to help people. And so one of the things was just to sit and write a list of 25 of your good qualities. Another exercise was asking people who know you, what are your good qualities? Because people who know you will see things that you don't see about yourself.
Yeah.
And as you spend more time consciously defining and looking for who you are, it will manifest. And it might just come, and when it comes, you'll say, oh, I should have known this all along. But sometimes it just takes this process, because we get all this feedback of what we should be doing and who we are. And eventually, if you set the intention of, I want to be my authentic self, and you go through the steps necessary, it will manifest.
True. Yes. Like you said, taking that time out and reflecting. One thing I've noticed with my own self, and I did listen to that one talk you gave, it was very helpful. Me, myself too, I'm working on this project and I'm trying to like bring clarity to it. And so I'm trying to also do in the same process as you. What I found out, even people criticize you, and those people who will criticize to hurt you, and there will be people who criticize out of sincerity. So I listened to all of those criticism and I analyzed and I thought about it. I said, I hear something repeated over, you know, there's no clarity in my speech. So, okay, even if whether it was those people who were criticizing to hurt me or those people who was criticizing to help me, I took it into consideration and I worked on myself. I said, I need to bring clarity into my speech and writing. This is a weakness I had from childhood and I need to work on it. So I'm taking classes. I'm trying to just go out there and do my things like this webcast. So it does help. You know, sometimes a lot of us, we get offended when people take, you know, give you criticism, whether if they're hurting you. Yes, it's the wrong way they give it to you. They should be more considerate of your feelings and give it to you in a nicer manner. But then there's those people who are sincere and that criticism matches the person who didn't want it to be nice to you. So that criticism matched. So I was like, yeah, maybe there is a weakness. So when I would record myself, I would see myself, I saw my weakness. And I said, I need to work on myself. And that's how I'm still finding my authentic self. So hopefully Jennifer, you know, she has answered your question. Jennifer was one of my guest speakers last year when I did my first season. So we have a few more. Umi Ahmed says, as a single mother, I do struggle finding time for myself.
Yes, but you will find that once you start setting aside some time, even if it's just 10 minutes, it will nourish you and you'll feel better. One thing that a lot of mothers do and women do is take that time when you go to the bathroom. Even if it's, you know, if you've got little babies, I can understand when you've got really little babies, it's really hard the first year. In fact, the first 2 years, because that second year, they're going to really be wanting. But even then, by that second year, you can tell that child, I'm going to the bathroom, baby. Just wait a few minutes. And give the child something to keep the child busy and safe. And spend, if that's what you have to do, when you're in the bathroom, when you're taking a shower, spend a little bit more time or take a bath when they're sleeping, when the children are sleeping. Take that time for yourself. Take a bath instead of a shower if you have a tub. Put some Epsom salt, some lavender or peppermint oil in there, and just sit and soak and relax and think. It's very healing. You'll feel so much better. And you'll find that just even taking little bits of time, more and more, you'll start to find more time, more ways of giving yourself your self-care and what you need. And you'll also find that when you're feeling good and you've taken time for yourself, you'll be happier with the children and more patient with them, and they will be happier. Because children respond to the mother. I never had any children, but I used to be around women who had babies. And I could stop a baby from crying by just holding the baby before I knew anything, because I wasn't stressed out. I wasn't worried. And so when mothers are stressed or they're afraid or they're frustrated, babies and children feel it. So it's much better for you to take care of yourself. I mean, if you can afford it, hire a babysitter and go out for a few hours and treat yourself to something that you haven't done for a while. These will make such a big difference. and how you feel and how your life looks and how even the children will feel. They'll be happy. They'll even miss you if you leave them with someone else for a few minutes, for a little short time. And it's also good practice for when they're getting ready to go to school, so that it's not such a traumatic experience for children because they've just been home with you or know you. When actually, as a single mother, you probably already work and have a babysitter. But it's really important. If all you can find is 10 minutes, start with the 10 minutes. And it's just your time. And you can build on it, and it will continue to grow until it becomes a habit. It will become a habit, and you will feel happy. It'll be something you'll want to do all the time.
True. Yeah, sometimes we think, we have to take hours and care for ourselves. But actually, it's just even 5 minutes a day, 10 minutes a day, like you said, or once a week, give an hour to yourself. Right. Or you could maybe work with other mothers who are single and say, hey, maybe once a month, this mother gets all the kids. They could have like movie time, plan something, and the other mothers could relax, or 2 mothers or 3 mothers, So that could be another option.
That's a good idea.
Working together with other mothers who are single and organizing your time. So continuing, our time is getting close to our end. So I want to make sure we answer all the questions people ask. Okay, that's not a question. Okay, Lydia asked, when we are depressed, it's hard to get outside at all, just stuck. I remember it well. So, when someone is depressed, how are they going to give self-care? Are they going to go outside?
I read a quote that I'm going to pull up here that looked at depression, if I can find it. Here it is, in a different way. Now, there is clinical depression is something, if you are clinically depressed, which has certain characteristics, you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you're really sick, you really need to see a doctor. Not just to have someone to talk to look at, because sometimes those depression can actually be caused by something wrong with your body physically. There's different, so you should see a doctor, make sure that there isn't something wrong with you, with your immune system, with your, I can't think about the other parts of your system that will affect your body and your mood. With the chemicals in your body, that something's out of balance. And particularly if it goes on for a long period of time, you really should see a medical doctor and get tested. Because sometimes people who are depressed really have something wrong with them physically that can be fixed. But I want to share this quote. The word depressed is spoken phonetically as deep rest. We can view depression not as a mental illness, but on a deeper level as a profound and very misunderstood state of deep rest, entered into when we are completely exhausted by the weight of our own identity or the weight of what's going on in our lives. So sometimes it might be good to take that deep rest, to look at it from a different point. That I need this time to be alone, to not go anywhere. Again, it's a time of going within. So you have to, if you've gotten to the point, if you've practiced self-care, if you're aware of yourself, if you get into that state, you have to look at it and think about, could this be something physically wrong with me? Or do I just really need this time because of the things that have been happening around me that have made me need a deep rest, that have either made me sad? It can be anything from our jobs to our relationships to just sometimes what's going on in the planets and around us. It can make you have those feelings. And it's nothing wrong with having those feelings. It's nothing wrong with going into the darkness, into that feeling, being alone and facing it. But if it goes on and on for weeks and weeks and you're not sleeping, you're not eating, you really do not feel well, then you need to see a doctor, because a lot of times it's a physical thing. And then if you can't do it by yourself, then you need to see who can help you. Either, a counselor, a spiritual leader, a good friend, and finally maybe a psychologist or something, if there's nothing physically wrong. But I think a lot of people, society, even though that society thinks that you have to be smiley and jumpy up and down all the time to be happy, and that if you're not that way, there's something wrong with you and you need to see a psychologist or take some drugs. But that's not true. We all have our ups and downs, and those downs serve a purpose. And if we really want to get into ourselves and become self-aware, we can be able to use it and come out on the other side better.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. Depression, I mean, yeah, there's different level. There's a low level, which we could just go through our faith, and there's a lot of practices in our own faith that teaches us how to take that depression away, different methods of breathing, eating healthy, taking a walk, spending time with people you click with. There's great ways to do if you don't really have a lot of depression. But if your level of depression is very high, suicidal, or you're not, like you said, not eating, you're not, it's been over 6 months, and the clinical, they said that if it's over 6 months, it's serious, so they need to go seek help. So again, we're with Skywalker, who's talking about the STAR experience, which is a 4-step experience for building a foundation for abundant happiness. And let me see if there's any other questions. There was one about, they were asking, is this a program? Let me just go up. Is this an online program? Amina is asking.
It will be online. I haven't launched it yet. It's not going to launch until November 20th. I'm still working on the, and this will be a fee-based program. I'm working on the sales page, but there'll be different levels that people can get involved in. And if you go to my website, you'll get some information, and if you get on my mailing list, then you'll be able to get more information as I launch it, because I'll be launching it and sending out information through my mailing list. And I actually have, if you go to my website, there is a free ebook right now, which is going to be up for a little bit longer, called Jumpstart Your Happiness. And that'll give you a little glimpse of what we'll be doing in the STAR experience. It's just a really small little thing, but you'll get a little glimpse, and you'll be on the email list to get more information when it launches.
Yeah. So I don't see any more questions. So a final time, any more questions? Write them down quickly before we tune out. Again, I want to say thank you for everyone watching this webcast. Listen to Understand with Gulmakai, where I bring special guests like Skywalker to help us with our conflicts in the world, conflicts with ourselves, conflicts with our family. So this helps us, have, her talk was based upon how to have happiness. And I did post her links to her websites, and to her Facebook pages. So you could go up. I pinned one of it on top, so you could find her there. Skywalker, I want to say thank you so much. You've been such a great guest speaker. So many people were asking questions, and there's a lot of good comments, which you could come back to and reply to them later on today or tomorrow. So everyone, I really want to say thank you. Before we leave, of course, anything else you want to say, Skywalker?
I just wanted to say thank you for inviting me. This has really been a pleasure. I've seen all the comments coming up. I can't read them, but it's really been exciting and rewarding to see so much interest. And I've really enjoyed it. I always enjoy talking to you, and thank you for letting me come here and share this.
You're welcome. It was a pleasure. I love what you shared with us. It's very, uplifting and helpful for all of us. We all need to be happy, and you gave us great tips on, we are going to benefit. And thank you everyone for tuning